Hi guys, how you all doing? So it's true, I have been selling lipstick. Prior to working at ThoughtWorks, I've been selling lipstick for the previous 10 years, so this is a bit of a change. So I was lucky enough to work with Myer. They approached us just before Christmas and basically said to us, we know there's a lot of Chinese tourists coming to Australia and we want to engage with them in some way. The only catch to that was they said, we need to do it by Chinese New Year, which was the 28th of January. And you can't have much money, and you have to prove that these people are actually spending money in Myer while you do that. So because we had such a short time frame to actually consider this problem, we couldn't sort of come up with a business case and write out a whole bunch of numbers and so forth to figure out sort of how much money could come from these tourists. We had to take more of an experiment-led design or a hypothesis-led design to actually figure out what customers wanted and what Myer could do for them. So as Karen said, there's a lot of tourists coming to Australia from China at the moment. So in the 12 months up till August this year is 1.33 million. They spend $11 billion, which is about $8,000 each on average. And that includes accommodation and flights within the country and food and services and so forth. But there's a big chunk of that's in retail. So if any retailers can kind of grab onto a little bit of that, it's a good thing for the business. So that's the graph of Chinese travellers coming to Australia since 1991. So you can see there, apart from the little blip around the GFC, it's pretty much exponential. So in the next 12 months, there's expected to be about 1.4 million coming to Australia, and a third of those will come to Queensland at some time in their travels. So it's a big opportunity for people here to sort of really think about how they might engage with these customers. So, first thing that you've got to do when you get sort of a problem like this is you've got to go out and meet your customers. So basically what we did, we wrote up some survey questions, things like where are you from, what are you planning on doing here in Australia, what products, if you're going to purchase products, what sort of products are you looking for in Australia, and you have to really listen to what people are saying and kind of gather those information and bring it back. My Mandarin is about year 9 level, so I was lucky enough to have 2 of our experienced designers, Ruja, who's coming up later today, and Chensa helping out on the streets. One thing that's a bit of advice here, a gift card doesn't go astray, so if you can have a pack of gift cards and say to them there is a little reward in it if we have a chat, that's always a handy thing to do. So there's a few different, what we did next is we took all these surveys and we brought them back to the office and we started figuring out like what is, go back one screen. What are the archetypes of customers that are coming here? So you've got the holiday travellers that are coming over, you've got students that are here for 1 to 3 years, and you've also got people visiting those students as well, so a lot of families come over to visit friends and so forth. And a really interesting category that I don't know if you've heard about is this concept of Daigou. So what it is it's often students in Australia that are buying on behalf of, that's what Daigou means, buying products on behalf of people back in China and sending them home. And we found out a student can earn somewhere between $30,000 and $80,000 as a part-time job, basically going around the city, collecting up products for people and sending them home. There are a few catches there. People want to know, they want evidence that this product was purchased in Australia, so they need a receipt. They often need photos. So you sometimes see Chinese people in store taking photos themselves with products and things like that. Sometimes that's to demonstrate to their customers back home that the products are actually from Australia and they haven't just got them from somewhere else and shipped them across. So once you've constructed your archetypes, the next thing to do is have a bit of a think. Oh, actually, I was going to ask, yes, who has WeChat on their mobile? We've got one couple. Yeah, cool. So about 900 million people use WeChat. They sort of call it a super app. So it's kind of a combination between Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Uber. You can order taxis on there. It's a bit like PayPal. You can pay people with it. And you can also book hotels. So it's got a whole bunch of functionality in and amongst it. This is what WeChat looks like. So when you look at it, you kind of go, that just looks like WhatsApp. What's the difference? But you might see there that a brand has snuck in this case Myer, into your friends list. Now you'd sort of think, I don't want to have brands in my friends list, right? Because they're going to be spamming me all the time. WeChat sort of control that, and they make sure they limit the ways that you can reach out to your customers. They limit the contact to 4 times a month. And also, you can't directly contact a specific customer. They have to reach out to you first. And if they do that, then you can chat back to them. So they've got some controls there to make sure that customers aren't sort of taken advantage of or spammed. So the other interesting thing is behind WeChat, there's a whole API that you can build software around. So it can use things like the GPS in your phone. It can use the accelerometer on your phone to see if it's moving. It can use the camera, it can use voice, and a bunch of different things like this. So what you can do is actually build really engaging applications within WeChat itself. So I've got a couple of examples here on the right. So the top one there at Chai Tai Fook is, this is a jewelry business in China. And what all these people here are doing is they're basically shaking their phones. So if they come in the vicinity of this store and they shake their phone, they'll get a little voucher, and then they can go spend that voucher in store. And obviously you can generate a lot of traffic by doing that sorts of thing. You might think the second one's Pokemon Go, kind of looks a little bit like Pokemon Go, but you'll see there they've got these little red packets. So red packets or red envelopes are used to sort of give small monetary gifts to people, and it's often used as a form of luck. You often see them at Chinese New Year, at weddings, things like this, when people hand them around. With this in particular, people can actually go around and collect these red packets from around their neighbourhood. So it's great for retailers to basically say, I'm going to pop some red packets outside my store and encourage people to sort of come to my store and spend money. The last example down the bottom there is Uniqlo. They have a very big following on WeChat, I think almost 2 million people at the moment. And what they allowed people to do is try on their the Uniqlo clothes in store. They then would superimpose Paris, London, New York, etc. in the background there. People could then scan the phone, use the phone to scan this device in store, and then they could send that to families and friends to show them what the clothes look like. So that was a very successful event. Now, QR codes. I think most people in Australia kind of go, QR codes, they're a bit naff, they're a bit ugly. Do people even use them anymore? But with WeChat, it's one of the primary ways to bridge that physical to digital environment. It's also the way you add friends on WeChat as well, or join groups and that sort of thing. So I've got a couple of examples over on the right of how QR codes can be used. So the Myer one there is the postcard that we made that invites people at Chinese New Year to join, to follow Myer's channel. You'll see there are a few there from Disney. You can kind of play around with QR codes and kind of embed images and so forth in them, so they don't always have to be like just the blocks. So that's some interesting designs there. And the one down the bottom is the University of Bristol. And obviously they've made the bridge and they've embedded the QR codes within it. QR codes can be any size. So you can scan them from 1 metre, 20 metres, 50 metres, depending on the size of the actual image. Now, interestingly, this is in WeChat and this is a primary method, and because there's 900 million Chinese that have this on their phones, they use them for advertising in China. In the latest version of iOS, iOS 11, it's now built in as a native feature of the camera. So if you open up the camera and you're taking pictures of people or whatever, you might start to notice if there's a QR code in your frame, you get a little pop-up come down from the top of the screen, and you can basically follow that to the link. So it's a great way of disseminating information. Android also has it now. You'll see it just above the Chrome keyboard in Android. Cool, so back to Myer. So basically, chatting to people, we talked about the sort of products they wanted. At Myer, particularly of interest is Australian brands. So you get Jurlique, Natio, Aesop, things like that people really want to buy and take home. Also Australian designers like Matuszewski, and also products that are made from natural fibres like wool and so forth, where there's provenance. So they're sort of made in Australia and things like that. There's a brand called Mini Jumbuck that sells like woolen blankets, and they're extremely popular to the extent where at Myer now they have a vacuum cleaner so they can vacuum pack them. So you can buy 6 of them and sort of cart them home. And they're not cheap, they're $400 or $500 each. So very interesting. So basically, Myer's got some brands and products that Chinese customers want. This is our hypothesis. We've got stores in most capital cities around Australia, so tourists should be able to get to them quite easily. Because most of the tourists have WeChat, we're going to use that as our engagement channel. And because the executive that wanted this project delivered said we have to show that we can make money, all of this turns into the ability to actually prove that revenue can be made through a social channel. So as Rowan was saying earlier, with ideation, go wild. You have to go a bit crazy. So you don't want to think about things, you don't want to think about, can I do this at this point in time? You just want to think, what do these customers actually need? So some good examples of this was, translation's a huge problem for Chinese customers. So they come into store and they want to look at products and so forth. English speaking sales associate, how do I deal with that? So, one of the ideas was, a customer in the store could click a button and a Mandarin speaking sales associate would come running. Tough problem, may not be feasible, but that's okay. Let's just have it anyway. People also struggled with tax refunds. As discussed earlier, tax refunds never fun, and it's that horrible point of a journey back to your country where you're sort of like, now I have to queue up and pull out all these receipts and get some cash back from you, and no one really likes doing that. So that was a concern. So we came up with a bunch of ideas, probably 15 to 20 ideas. No judgments at this stage. And then the next point was to basically take them back to the customers. So as I was saying before, what's the fidelity of one of these prototypes? My drawing skills is a bit like stick people with boxes, not great. There's some really good tools like Scenes from SAP. You wouldn't think that a massive finance company would make a UX tool, but they have. And so you can print all these out and cut them out and sort of paste them on quite quickly, and then all you need to be sketching is your boxes, which I'm good at, so that's fine. So we basically took a whole bunch of these prototypes, we took them out in the street, again, to speak to customers, and we said, would you actually use this or not? Let's have a conversation about what the flow is. And we came up with new ideas, but then again, we threw probably 3/4 of the ideas out because we thought it was a good idea, customers not so much, they weren't particularly interested in the idea. So the next step is to basically say, all right, so we've got these ideas that have actually come back from customers where they say, yeah, I might use that, that's actually quite good. But we do have this problem of technical feasibility and business feasibility. So we basically put it out on a graph and said, all right, can we actually do it? So low feasibility means very tough. On the other scale, what we did is we laid out, these are like solving specific problems. This is brand engagement up the top. So we didn't want just people to follow Myer, we also wanted them to actually be able to solve their problems that they're having. So one of the biggest issues is Myer has catalogues that they release every couple of weeks, which has lists of deals and offers, but they're in English. So how do I know what's on sale and what's cheap if I'm a tourist? So that came out as one that we could actually look after and would solve a problem for people. And also we had a couple others that we chose there. You can see some of these things. Live broadcast events, they're great, but they're hard to set up. Delivering things to hotels, you got to deal with hotels. So there's a whole bunch of things on there which are actually quite complicated when you look into it to deliver, and you're not going to be able to do that in a 5-week time frame. So this is Johnny had this slide up earlier. So this is basically pirate metrics. Does anyone know why it's called pirate metrics? Because they are. Bad joke. That joke was from like 7 years ago, whenever it was invented. I think a guy called Dave McClure invented pirate metrics. That's a weird concept, but it's actually a really good thing to use in practice. So acquisition is basically, I've attracted a customer and they can see what I've got. So we need to consider that. Activation, now I need to see some sort of intent that they're going to actually do something and engage with me specifically, rather than just being a passive follower. Coming across to the right, you've got revenue. So, we're told this has to make money, but we have to actually be able to tie that back to one of these customers over here. So we have to be quite specific about the way that we track that revenue. Referral, can I send things back to my families and friends and say, you want to shop at Myer, this is why. And retention, we want them to obviously keep coming back and be happy customers. So what we did with that is we took the ideas that we had and we wanted to map them out against these metrics to say where, at which stage, we could actually start to measure some of these things and prove the value. So with acquisition, as you're probably familiar, influencers are very useful. In this case, using influencers in China well in advance of Chinese New Year, and then using local influencers who communicate in Chinese closer to the event. The postcard with the QR code earlier, we distributed these to the 10 main stores. So these could be set up all around the store and people could just scan them to join. And store visual merchandise is also useful. And we struggle with the VM team because they sort of said QR codes are ugly. So we're like, what can we do to make this look good? And so we had a few challenges at that point in time. So activation. What we did here is this is the views and the offers and promotions that Myer has on hand. So Shake is so basically there's an accelerometer in your phone, and so you can pick up certain types of activities. So if you shake your phone in WeChat, you can make it do certain things. So we decided to use that to figure out if people actually wanted some information from Myer rather than just following. We created a red envelope game, which was the way of basically, we needed to tie the revenue back to a specific customer. And so to do that, we actually had to give out numbered gift vouchers that we could track back to that person. Because if you use a discount code, like here, it's very hard to actually tie that to a person. Yes, I saw a discount, said 40% off, but did I shop because I saw that, or was I just buying the product anyway? And we used a digital gift message application to do the retention and the referral. Cool, so these are the 3 different apps that we made. Given we had a short period of time, we did them in a specific order. So basically, the first one is the Shake. So basically what it does, it invites you to shake your phone to get deals and offers. You shake your phone, and basically you'll get 2 offers that pop up every time you shake. And they will have the Chinese text up the top, and also have the brand. And then an interesting thing with the way that they show discounts in China is that's actually 40% off. But the way they do that in Chinese is they say it's 60% off price. So that's kind of how that works. We found that people would use this about 9 or 10 times, so that essentially we'd have 20 or 30 at any particular time promotions loaded into this app. And people would keep shaking until they saw an original promotion come back around again, and that's when they'd stop. So it's quite successful from that point of view. Another interesting point on this one is when you shook, we left a little pause, and you'd sort of think, phones are fast now, shouldn't you just instant feedback, like get straight back to people? But having that little pause makes you feel like it's actually getting a deal, an offer for me. Like I'm going to a computer, I'm getting it out. I mean, it was doing that, but computers do that a little bit fast nowadays. So sometimes building in some user tricks like that can be useful to give sort of a bit more emotion to the app. The second one here is the red envelope game. So this was only available like on Chinese New Year, because that's when they kind of celebrate this sort of thing by giving out red envelopes. And what you did here is you took your phone, you've got a little shopping bag, which is down the bottom here. And the whole idea is you move your phone to guide the shopping bag back and forwards across the screen, and you try and catch red envelopes as they fall from the top. And the idea is the more red envelopes you catch, the more money you get. We only used low value gift cards, so $5, $8, $15, but it was still very successful. The last one over on the right is the digital gift message. So the idea with this one is you can see the little swing tag on the right there. So if someone was packaging some goods up to take them home and give it to a friend or loved one, they would go to the wrap station, they'll get one of these little swing tags, they could scan it in WeChat, and then you would type a little message. So in this case, I miss you so much. You click save, you send the present home. When they scan it at the other end, there's a little animation, little envelope opens, and they get the digital gift message. The other interesting thing down the bottom there is you'll see there's like a date and time and so forth. So when before I spoke about the Daigor, like you need to prove that you're in the store and you did something at a certain time, this helps. So if those people are buying presents, I mean, they're buying them, their customers paying, but they're buying products for their customers and sending them home. You're actually proving when you scanned it, where you scanned it, things like that. So that was a useful tool, we thought, for a couple of different reasons. So the Shake was really good. In the 4 weeks, 2 weeks either side of Chinese New Year, we served up 27,000 special offers. We ended up with about 4,000 followers following in that period, so joining the application and following Myer. Red envelope, so that was just run over the Chinese New Year period, so that was run for 2 days. We gave out 436 gift cards. 85% of those were redeemed within a 2-week period, and the average spend was $77. And interestingly, the average spend was $77 for all 3 levels of gift card. So it's surprising, a $5 gift card, they were still spending $77. So it's something that's worthwhile, testing out, like with these things. If you can build more tests into your experiment, you might find some interesting facts. Now the last one, the digital gift message, we thought was a good idea, but wasn't. Only 134 of these cards were used, and I'd printed 5,000 of them. So there's probably a bunch of boxes around Myer somewhere with those things gradually degrading in them. It's really hard to basically execute this in store. So basically you have to do it at the wrap station. The person at the wrap station kind of needs to understand what the tourist's saying. So if there's a language problem, very difficult to sort of explain, hey, we have these cards, this is what you can do with it, go in the app, do this, do that. Very difficult to communicate. And as well, maybe people were just buying things for themselves and they weren't sending them to other people. So lesson learned, and that's all good because that's what we actually sort of want to achieve out of this kind of experiment, is we don't always want to succeed. Does anyone use this app? Probably everybody. So now that you've kind of gathered that information, the executive at the start said, you've got 5 weeks, you need to prove that WeChat, or you need to prove that we can engage with Chinese customers and do that with revenue. So basically your little experiments give you some data back, which then you can extrapolate forward. So basically take your data, prepare it, model out the costs. So, influencers cost money. Printing 5,000 little gift message cards which never get used costs money. So you have to basically model all these things out. You can put in there your peaks and troughs. January, February, is going to be busier, so we can boost up those months and so forth. I think there was a discussion earlier about the way your team gets funded. So when you're doing this, look for capacity-funded teams, and what I mean by that is there's a certain number of people and a certain spend that I can have until this is not successful. So what we don't want is project-funded. We don't want just budget amounts. So here's 100 grand. Have fun, and then you get to the end of that money, and you're sort of like, "Can I have some more, please?" And suddenly they turn around and go, "Actually, we're not very interested in that anymore." What you want to do is have that communication where it's like, "No, if I have good metrics, if I'm making revenue for the business, like you've said, you will keep giving me money." So keep that in mind when you're asking for the bigger check at the end of your experiment. The last thing there, which is, again, a little bit boring, CapEx versus OpEx. To me, money is money. If you've got a finance person that you like, buy them a coffee, get them to come in, explain this stuff to you, model out your depreciation for the asset that you build, which is the app, and kind of play that forward over the period of the engagement. Because when you take those things up to the C level and you say, "Hey, look, I've even modeled in depreciation into this," they'll be like, "Oh, good idea," and hopefully sign the check for you. So we can't really leave you with an Excel spreadsheet because that would be a bit of a bummer. So we've got a little video to play that sort of goes through the engagement and shows like how it was received in store.
Myer is actually about bringing the love of shopping to life, and it's obvious that the Chinese love Australia, so there's a great opportunity for us to bring that connection together. A match requires an emotional connection. We partnered with ThoughtWorks so we could quickly understand that consumer behaviour to build that connection. When I saw that digital experience, I knew immediately the Chinese consumer would love it. and knew they'd use it in store and it'd really start to build that emotional connection.
Oh wow, I love the game because collecting the red envelope is one of the traditions in China.
We get a lot of Chinese tourists that come into our store, so there is a bit of a language barrier when it comes to sort of speaking with them. With the shake function, customers already know what deals they're going to want, so when they come in, it's a lot easier to sort of sell to them.
We are celebrating our Chinese New Year, and they are also celebrating this with us. So it's quite warm, and we love this.
Seeing our Chinese friends walk through the doors of our store with their mobile phones, going shake, I knew we'd achieved our goal of building that emotional connection.
So all in all, it was a pretty fun and exciting because you saw Chinese New Year. It's kind of fun and there was a lot of activities there, so that was really good project to be on. So cool, awesome. Thanks so much. Cheers.